So it's really an honor to be here and share my story and my family's story to facilitate this panel of amazing people. Next, we'll hear from Benetick Maddison. He's the Assistant Director and Project Specialist for Youth, Climate, and Nuclear Issues at the Marshallese Educational Initiative. He moved to Arkansas 20 years ago with his family from the Marshall Islands and works with the Marshallese students and their families on projects to increase school retention rates and promote Marshallese culture, history, and issues impacting his people and homeland. There you go, Benetick.
Well, thank you, Pam. I wish to thank the organizers for the opportunity to participate in today's virtual event. So this presentation will highlight why the Marshallese are here in the United States, the ongoing consequences of the US nuclear testing program and climate change in the Marshall Islands, and what Marshallese are doing today to address the climate and nuclear nexus impacting our community. So the Marshall Islands are made up of 5 islands and 29 atolls, and it sits on a vast ocean in the north central Pacific between Hawaii and Guam. With a mere 70 square miles of land, it is scattered across an exclusive economic zone of 1 million square miles of ocean that unifies and separates the islands and atolls that make up the low-lying island nation, home to a small indigenous population. Unfortunately, it is these reasons the United States chose to test nuclear weapons in the Marshall Islands. After World War II, the American government was looking for a place to test or develop nuclear weapons shortly after that. And so the Marshall Islands were chosen, specifically Bikini and Enewetak atolls. And the people who lived on those atolls were removed to make way for large scale nuclear testing. And like so many people around the world at the time, Marshallese did not know what nuclear weapons were, nor the consequences of nuclear testing. And so before the Bikinians were removed on March 7, 1946, the US government promised them that everything would be okay and that they could return to their homeland as soon as they were done experimenting with weapons of mass destruction. Today, the Bikini Atoll is still unsafe for the Bikinians to live on. And Enewetak Atoll, where most of the testing happened, a small population lives there because the US said that it was safe for humans, which is not the case. So the first nuclear test, codenamed Able, was detonated on Bikini Atoll on July 1st, 1946. 67 nuclear weapons, equivalent to 7,200 Hiroshima bombs, were tested in the Marshall Islands between 1946 and 1958. And unlike our ancestors who lived long and healthy lives, due to nuclear colonialism, the population suffers from many nuclear-related diseases and is dying young. In fact, we have some of the highest rates of cancers, diabetes, and heart problems in the world. On March 1st, 1954, the US detonated their largest nuclear weapon, codenamed Castle Bravo, on Bikini. The weapon was 1,000 times the force of the bomb dropped on Hiroshima, and the fallouts affected many atolls and islands in the country, especially Rongelap Atoll. Locals thought the fallout was snow, so people had skin burns, hairs falling out, and soon people were sick with cancers, and women gave birth to jellyfish babies or deformed babies, babies with no bones. And so the US then said that Castle Bravo was a miscalculation. In addition, the Japanese fishermen near and within the vicinity of the Marshall Islands were also exposed to nuclear fallouts. After examining US government documents, US scholar Holly Barker wrote about the plight of women of Rongelap Atoll, who were part of a then secret study by the doctors under the Atomic Energy Commission, today's Department of Energy, called Project 4.1, originally titled Study of Response of Human Beings Exposed to Significant Beta and Gamma Radiation due to fallout from high-yield weapons. The study happened 6 days after Bravo. Those studied were enrolled without their consent. The people of Rongolap were returned to their contaminated atoll 3 years after Bravo and stayed there until Greenpeace evacuated them in 1986. So the trust territory of the Pacific Islands was an agreement between the United States and the United Nations. And although the agreement was established in 1947, a year after the US began testing weapons, nuclear weapons in the Marshall Islands, the agreement solidified the United States' use of the islands for nuclear testing. And so the Marshall Islands became a strategic area, which meant that the US had total control of the islands and the population. Under the agreement, the US was supposed to care for the health and well-being of the Marshallese people, but the US did not live up to its obligation because it destroyed the environment and people's health. In 1986, the Marshall Islands and the United States signed an agreement called the Compact of Free Association, allowing Marshallese to come to the States without visas for education, health, employment, and other reasons that attract people. The treaty provides economic aid to the Marshall Islands, and in return, the US has a military base in the country. And although the agreement stems from the nuclear testing program, it does not address the ongoing biological and ecological problems. The compact is set to expire next year on May 1st, 2023, but the Biden administration has yet to negotiate with the Marshallese government. We hope to have a deal that will address the nuclear legacy and provide adequate compensation. So not only are we dealing with nuclear issues, but we're also on the front line of the climate crisis. The Marshall Islands are 2 meters above sea level, putting the country at risk of vanishing under water due to rising sea levels. So in the 1970s, the US sent 8,000 participants with over 2,400 non-military and 5,600 active military personnel to construct a tomb on Enewetak Atoll called the Runadome, which is this structure that you see here. It is a nuclear waste storage. However, it is leaking nuclear chemicals into the fragile environment. And it is a concern that the Marshall Islands government has raised with the United States countless times. In fact, Congress instructed the Department of Energy to assess the structure, and a report came out 2 years ago, June of 2020. DOE basically said that the dome is fine and nothing is leaking, which is not true. And so sea level rise and nuclear waste in the Marshall Islands are significant problems that Marshallese cannot and should not have to address alone. We only emit a tiny percentage of the global greenhouse emissions, and the nuclear waste does not belong to us. And scientists have warned that if the country were underwater today, the structure would break open, releasing 3.1 million cubic feet of radioactive soil and debris, including lethal amounts of plutonium. And these environmental issues will worsen the health issues that already exist in the community brought on by nuclear testing and the destruction of lands where people cannot grow food due to radiation. So they depend on the importation of unhealthy food, such as ramen, canned food, rice, and so forth, contributing to diabetes, heart problems, and other chronic health issues. And so the Marshall Islands have created a national adaptation plan to mitigate and adapt to environmental changes due to climate change. But one significant focus under the plan is to elevate the country. And the cost of maintaining the status quo over all of the atolls and the islands over time is going to be huge for a small island nation. The government believes that it's going to cost them, tens of billions of dollars. The Marshall Islands has a long history of advocacy for nuclear justice, dating back to the United Nations trusteeship of the islands when the United States began its nuclear testing program. Marshallese leaders and community members, together with allies around the world, have been fighting for justice. And within the last 4 or 5 decades fighting for climate justice. And so the Marshall Islands led a nuclear lawsuit against the nuclear weapon states in 2014 with the help of the Nuclear Age Peace Foundation. We did not win the lawsuit. However, it did receive a lot of international attention because of the desperate need for climate actions. There is a group of nations called the Higher Ambition Coalition, and the Marshall Islands created this group during the Paris climate talks. So while big emitting countries were still undecided on whether to sign the Paris Agreement or not, the Marshall Islands was working behind the scenes to get 190 plus countries to sign on through the Higher Ambition Coalition. Aside from the Paris Accord, the Marshallese leaders and community members have participated in COP meetings and other important conferences for Marshallese to take part in. And so for decades, Marshallese have used mediums such as songs, poems, paintings, and drawings, skits, movies, and other forms of protest or activism to share our nuclear and climate stories with the world. Young Marshallese like Kathy Jedno-Kitchener, Selena Leum, and countless others are helping to raise awareness about these environmental issues affecting us, our loved ones, culture, people, and islands. So one of our goals at the Marshallese Educational Initiative, together with the Reverse the Trend organization, is to educate young people about the twin issues of nuclear and climate change. Last year, several Marshallese youth participated in monthly workshops led by lovely Yamayam and Christian Siobanu. 6 Marshallese youth, including myself, wrote this poem called A Journey Home. And it is a poem that reflects on the different places that each of us calls home, whether it be Arkansas, where the largest concentration of Marshallese resides outside of the Marshall Islands, or our ancestral homeland, or our planet. It also reflects on the importance of land to Marshallese. Like other cultures, land is a part of our Marshallese identity. And so we'll watch a short teaser of A Journey Home and then listen to an audio recording by Marcina Langren, who also helped with the poem.